So, does anyone care to touch on this further?
Or taking a brand that wants to shift and switch positions and figuring out the new direction. And that definitely includes tone of voice, it includes the visual storytelling and all of it. And that entirely encompasses the energy, the music, the language you use. It's all accounted for in brand guidelines.
Right. My name is Jerry. I left MAGA, and I've got this little project that I've had in the can for almost 2 weeks now. A little conversation I had with one of the support staff with the Leaving MAGA organization. We got to talking about marketing because that's what she handles. So um, I hope you enjoy this. There's what I'm looking for. Gallery view.
Hey, nice.
Feels like that feels more comfortable.
Perfect. I have your outline just for fun, pulled up on my phone.
This is recording and transcribing because Zoom just does that.
Cool.
And of course, we'd already discussed the idea of doing this together with the idea of releasing the video to the public, as because it looks like you're in the office, or are you? No,
Yeah.
no, that's referred. No, I don't know. Home office, office home. I don't know.
I mean, both. Yeah, I work from home a couple of days a week, so I'm facing my window, so I get decent light, but my desk is right here with another monitor.
I'm actually sitting on the couch. That's Amy sitting right there next to me.
Hi. Good to
Over
meet you.
there, over there in that corner is the her grandette piano, and over there in that corner is my studio, which is tore down right now.
Oh, okay.
I thought I was going to be adding a video card into my tower, but my power supply won't handle it, and it's going to be a hassle. So what I'll do instead, upgrade the video quality over there
Okay.
because OBS is real flexible. What it does is it automatically detects the screen, the size that you're recording from.
Okay.
So if I upgrade my screens from 720 anyway to the widescreen format, if I pick up two
Mhm.
widescreens, then I'll have the same format as my laptop does.
Well, that's convenient.
And then that way I can while the slower machine is rendering, I can be recording and doing whatever on the other machine and switch back and forth. And then
Whew.
the laptop makes a mobile studio, which I'm pulling all together. It's crazy. It's fun.
That is awesome. And I never in a million years would have imagined that it takes so many things and components to vlog so effectively.
Right?
I severely underestimated how much goes into it.
Yeah, it is kind of surprising. Actually, if I move over, she kind of peeks through a little bit. You can see the river hippie
A little
shirt.
bit. Hello.
But yeah, she's our music minister at the church, and our pipe
So,
organist.
See, I know when you say that people don't know all the work that's involved.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So anyway, did you get a chance to take a look at that Edward Bernays piece, that history?
No,
No,
sorry. All the
it's quite all
parts
right.
going on, my brain is very full at the moment.
I totally get it. I totally get it. Um, so before we go much further, how about we talk about how we met,
Yeah,
where we met actually. We
we
we we met where?
we met in the Signal group chat for Leaving MAGA. I work on social media for the organization, and I was really excited to meet all of you guys. And Jerry is a very prolific contributor to the chat. And so I feel like I learned so much. And that's how this conversation happened.
Right, because one of the other leaders in the Leaving MAGA chat was had mentioned, and this was already something that was not quite front of mind, but almost front of mind about watching MAGA crumbling and recognizing there's going to be the rebranding.
Hmm.
Now, what I find problematic with that is like many of us ex-evangelicals have pointed out, the white supremacy thought patterns and ideologies are not going to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get better at hiding, which is why Jay and I got to talking about the rebranding thing.
Okay.
And the example that I presented to you when you're like, what are you talking about? Please give me more context on what you guys are referring to.
Yeah.
And so I sent you the article about that TPUSA chapter in Arkansas that broke off and created their own group. Um, Young American Revival or Youth American Revival, YAR.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, but I remember the R, and I now remember R is revival.
Mm.
But I'm also thinking of the fact that with the smaller groups, there's going to be less influence. But that's on a national level. What we got
Sure.
to look at is like we just listened to a story earlier about some parents down in Texas that were some mothers down in Texas that were tired of the school board banning books, right? So they challenged these conservative board members, school board members, in the election and won. And so that's something else that Jay and I are specifically talking about is watchdogging the reorganization at the grassroots level. Because
Okay.
once you start getting footholds at the lower levels, like you got school boards,
Yeah.
controlling the education of the youth, if they don't get a well-rounded education, because critical thinking and media literacy are two things that are sorely lacking from our public education program.
Definitely.
So that's kind of the angle that I'm coming from
Mhm.
a family of teachers and carpenters. This is just how I see it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
I don't see any passive, immediate thing that can be done to provide the effect that I want to see in the long term and for it to last. It's going to take effort moving forward because education takes time.
Mm-hmm. And
But
so what efforts do you think would counter the efforts, like call it the right wing efforts to install school board members, local elected officials? What do you think would counter that?
I've been looking into transformative justice
Okay.
because that's a passive address to any social ills on any level of social structure, right down to your neighborhood. Why was there some random gun shooting, or some random shooting in your neighborhood? What were
Mm-hmm.
the elements that led up to that?
Mm-hmm.
How can we educate people to curb that?
Mm-hmm.
How can we change people's ways of thinking?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that hardly anybody votes in their school board elections.
Right.
Most people can't tell you who their school board members are.
Right.
We need to fight them with their own medicine. That's what they do.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're right. I mean,
And that
realistically, I only started voting in my state and local elections within the past few years. And I totally neglected my local elections and candidates just because it wasn't top of mind. I was one of those vote every 4 years for the president, feel strongly about it for a couple of months, and then I don't know, just you go back into your own little world. And
I'm
recently I voted in the Chicago local elections, and one of the Illinois state seats is up because Dick Durbin is retiring. And so I did my research on the top candidates, and I felt really proud of myself for being an active local participant in my elections. And I felt really good about that. But you're absolutely right that
the
very
educated,
few
the
people pay
educated,
attention to
it,
the lower levels.
right.
And
It's the educated voter that's
mm-hmm.
going to make the difference, and it's going to take effort from those who understand the pitfalls
Mm-hmm.
of politics, and those of us who've been in on the conservative side understand. Me particularly, I understand. I don't know how many others do. I know a lot do. Understand how dark money's filtered through various organizations. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
That was something I was listening to earlier. It was that school board down there in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Their funding was handled through Patriot Mobile Pack.
Mm.
Patriot Mobile, you've heard of them, right?
In passing, yeah.
Okay, I was there. I was there in MAGA when Patriot Mobile was born.
Okay.
It happened during the first Trump administration. It was, to fight back against all the woke providers and all that. Without the forward understanding, it didn't take me long to figure this out because, tech is my thing. But without the understanding that even though they're paying the Trump organization for the phones, well, not the Trump organization, but Patriot Mobile for the
Mhm.
phone service, they're
Oh, that's
still
right.
using
It's coming back to me now.
they're
Yes.
still using the same cell phone towers that everybody else is using,
Right. Right.
right?
Just scams.
So it's just like down in Texas, the book bans, right?
Hmm.
Um, a couple of years ago, a couple of years ago, I was chuckling whenever Texas did another wave of book bans, and one of the Texas public schools pulled the Holy Bible off the shelf because of its explicit material that was included. Uh, You can't expect us to leave a Bible on the shelf when you're telling us to pull explicit stuff off because there's all kinds of explicit stuff in there. I mean, we don't
Hmm.
even need to get into the Song of Solomon, much less anything else, but that's one of the things they lack because they don't have critical thinking. They don't have the
Hmm.
ability to think things through to their logical conclusions.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that got me so frustrated. I started walking away because I was so frustrated with the rest of the movement. And then
Okay.
there were other things that happened, like the final straw for me was when Trump announced that his solution for homeless people was to move them into psychiatric camps and national forests. I'm like, I read the script before. I'm
Yeah.
out. I'm gone. I only had one toe on there. I had one little pinky toe left on the Trump train, and that nope, I'm done. And immediately it was full switch.
Yeah. It's
And
and it seems crazy how history repeats itself. And I just have so much Chicago context. And as far as I'm aware, there were some psychiatric hospitals that shut down in the city or in Cook County and pretty much turned everybody out on the street. So it's
right.
this cycle of picking people up, spitting them back out. They have no place to go. And like this cycle continues and continues without any actual solution.
There's a
Called the churn.
Yeah, it's called The Churn. What was that? Lost Patients. There's a docu-series podcast called The Lost Patients that
Okay.
happened up in Washington State. They had
Mm.
three major hospitals, and one of them, what was it, just one that closed, the one up north, I think it was. Anyway, it left a gap in facility,
Mhm.
facilitation for individuals. So these people got dumped out on the street, and then they get picked up by the cops, and then they get diagnosed, and they get sent to a facility and stabilized long enough to get kicked back out on the street, and then they get picked up, and it's that eternal loop. We've got it here in St. Louis because we
Yeah.
don't have enough housing and enough services.
And you say
But
that
but
there's
see
that
that
loop of getting picked up, going out on the street, like psychiatric hospitals back on the street. And that's assuming nobody gets sent to jail or prison in the meantime and then gets stuck in that loop as well.
right. And this is where some of that charismatic branding comes in. Some of that Christian nationalist branding comes in, where they don't recognize or won't recognize psychiatric issues in any
Mhm.
medical sense, in any medical context. That individual has a demon on them.
Okay. So, question,
Yeah.
what is let's call it the administration's, what do they have against SSRIs? Like, where does all that come from?
Oh boy, that's a can of worms.
I bet.
I personally I've been on SSRIs,
Yeah, same.
and I can't take them.
Hmm.
They work great for her. They
Hmm.
don't work for me. I personally I understand they're wonderful things, but through a conservative lens, it was this um like let's see, fluoxetine.
Okay.
That's one of the SSRIs, right?
It
Yeah,
could be.
yeah. Okay, so they're huh?
Prozac.
Prozac, yeah,
Mhm.
Prozac. Fluoxetine is the generic name. And for the right wingers, the problem with that medicine is right there in the name, fluoride.
Uh,
And then now we get into fluoride in the drinking water. And if you look at industrial fluoride, you get a breach in the container, it dissolves concrete.
okay.
And so it's not good for the body. And besides, if you look on the toothpaste tube, it says, if you swallow this has fluoride in it, if you swallow this much, more than a pea size, you need to
Mhm.
call poison control. But it's in the water, and then you're off in the Alex Jones land. And
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's the take on SSRIs is it's about brain sedation and brain poisoning,
Okay.
right? It'll bring in conversations around calcification of the pineal gland, which is to them is the third eye.
Mm.
And we're just going to curve away from that, man, because it gets real dark after
Yeah.
that. um, anyway, but yeah, that's the thing with the SSRIs. And
Okay. I guess I think what I was.
when you have a major portion of those individuals that are also looking at that like if they're listening to John MacArthur, PTSD doesn't exist,
Mm.
right? Or if you're listening to, man, this is doing crazy stuff over here. Let me
I
see. Turn
know.
that just a little bit. Maybe her pen moving won't cause the camera to refocus. Yeah, no, it kept like picking up your movement and it was like reframing.
Mm.
I stuck my hand over there and did it again. Anyway, that was weird. But I sussed it out pretty quick. But yeah, and then you look at like what Lauren Boebert was just talking about with the UFO files that are being released.
I have yet to look into that.
Okay,
And
I don't even want to mess with it simply because of the fact that you look at JD Vance, he thinks aliens are demons. They're really demons. Well, if they're
okay, but do
demons,
you think he does though?
if they're demons, why do they need spacecraft?
See, I don't
Right?
think CD Vance believes mostly anything he says.
No, he
I
doesn't.
really
But
don't.
there is a large constituency under him. There's a
Uh-huh.
large number of Trump believers, Trump followers, Trump worshipers
Yeah.
that believe that stuff. I've been hearing talk about preachers talking about the UFO files coming out,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're linking it back to the rapture.
Okay.
No surprise there. But then again, if you know your history, which a lot of people don't know this history, William Marion Branham, basically the godfather of all of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
uh, William Branham Research Center. Go check it out. John
Mm-hmm.
Collins and has fantastic network over there. They're off into stuff that I just don't follow anymore, but because I just needed to know the history side of things. But William Marion Branham was teaching that UFOs would be the tool for the rapture, and that the most devout would be taken directly to the mothership and given their glorified bodies. Everybody else going to be picked up by the smaller ships and then transported. So there's always this elitism thing. There's always this us them.
Yeah.
And it like the church that I grew up in. I grew up in the Assemblies of God denomination.
Okay.
Tiny little church in a rural farm town down in southwest Missouri. Not far from Springfield. You've heard of the place. I know you've heard of the place. And I'm
Mhm.
glad to hear we got a billboard going up there.
Mm.
So happy to hear that. I'm trying to get things together to get down that way to speak.
That'd be cool.
Life is crazy right now. But yeah, we had a very elitist view of the world. Now, bear in
Okay.
mind, this is back in the 70s, and the Assemblies of God and the Southern Baptist Church are dancing arm in arm now.
Mm.
Back then, we thought the Southern Baptist Church were their own special brand of crazy, but if
Mhm.
they could just catch the Holy Spirit, they'd be on the right track.
Hmm. That's wild because I have heard that through other people too. People close to me who grew up in the Church of Christ were like, they were saved and everybody else was fine, but it was that same elitism of we we will be saved. We are saved. We've
Mhm.
found Jesus and our God, and I can't speak to any more in depth, but I always thought that was so interesting that small groups of people have so much evidence for why they are chosen, why they are saved, why it's this small group of people and why everybody else is excluded.
Well, it's all branched off from the Millerite movement, which gave us the Seventh-day Adventists and the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Tell me about it.
All right, so back in the 1800s, I'm wanting to say late mid 1800s. There was this preacher. I forget his first name, but his last name was Miller. That's why they were the Millerites. And he convinced all these people to sell all their worldly goods and just give it all away because God was coming to save them. And he led them to the top of this mountain that God had told him to lead them to take them to. And then, of course, the rapture didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But he'd been leading everybody in prayer, right? Enter negotiating to save Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Well, God, if I can find 50 good men, would you save Sodom? You know, that sort of negotiation. So when the rapture didn't happen and daybreak came around, he told them that their prayers had saved the world, that God had decided he wasn't ready to destroy it just yet. 80% of those believers doubled down on their beliefs. And about 80% of the 20% that left perished because they had.
Wow.
And this mindset is something that has been repeated again and again. And we're seeing it repeated today.
Yeah.
You know, every few months there's another, oh, God is coming, the rapture's here. It's just like, stop. Just stop. The rapture was thought up by the rapture was thought up by a guy by the name of John Nelson Darby back in the 1820s, right? After he fell off of a horse and hit his head.
Cool. Love that for him.
Anyway, so there's something about head injuries and wacky thinking, like John Fetterman had a stroke and now he's MAGA.
Okay. Is he? But yeah,
he's MAGA light.
Like that keeps just like floating into my orbit and out.
He just got a Trump endorsement.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. After he got a stroke. I mean, I'm just anyway. Well, yeah, he does like the poorly educated, and he announced he knows that smart people don't like him. So those are direct quotes.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy as it is.
Right. And his followers don't pick up on it.
So when you say that there's after the theoretical rapture, 80% of people doubled down and then 20% of people didn't, but a good portion of them
perished.
Do you see that happening with the MAGA movement? Like, do you think that 80% is going to double down and then of those who leave, they're just going to like crumble?
I do think well, I don't know if it's the numbers like that. I don't know. I don't know how big the hardest core of the base is.
Yeah.
And through my observations online of a digital cult leader that I've tangled with several times, the other day he let it slip that he's losing his cool. I called him out on it in public, and not to him. I grabbed the evidence and I walked away, and I'm like, see, this is what it looks like when a cult leader is losing his grip on his cult, because his followers were leaving, and it's likely it's over the Iran deal, like so many MAGAs are. But he said he called them fair weather patriots.
Okay.
Told them that and told them if they did return that they would be bullied, with the word bullied in all caps. And I'm like, yeah, I thought you were a pastor, man. I mean, yeah. What dude's really complicated. I don't think he believes anything he spouts either. I'm pretty sure he's getting paid. I don't know who he's getting paid by. I tried to pin him down on it like 3 years ago.
Okay, so that is a perfect segue into like marketing and advertising and
Yeah.
like influencer and creator marketing that's
Yes.
happening is how many people are getting paid and how organized the messaging is on the right side. There is now she was a MAGA influencer. Now she has turned the tables.
Hmm.
Her name's Ashley St. Clair.
Hmm.
She is the mother of one of Elon Musk's children,
Hmm.
and she's blowing the whole thing wide open and spilling
I'm
all the
loving
tea.
it.
I
I'm
know, me too.
loving it. Well, see, I figured this was going to be coming eventually
Mhm.
because as I mentioned to you in text, I mentioned to you about Tenant Media,
Mhm.
which when that got blown open, it was a couple of individuals who had been Russian intelligence and were also associated with Russia Today.
Mhm.
And they had broken away from Russia Today and started Tenant Media. And they were paying influencers like Tim Pool and Benny Johnson.
Yeah.
You know, I
Money
forget.
too. Good money.
Dave Rubin was on that list, and
Okay.
Dave Rubin was one of the content creators that I had frequently called out. I'm like, MAGA, you guys say you like Dave Rubin's take, but you do realize he's married to another man and they have two adopted kids, right? How does that fit your narrative of gay
Mhm.
men can't be dads because they're just groomers? I'm sorry, this doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
It was just all that. Well, yeah, hypocritical, double think,
Big
and
time hypocrisy.
that's why they can't find any solid ground to stand on, and that's why you got that really nasty character Doug Wilson and that
Mm.
really nasty character Joel Webben, who were arm in arm, but they split over Israel.
Mm.
You know, Doug Wilson is Pete Hegseth's preacher.
Oh, that's his name. Okay. I would
Yes,
know the face.
the bearded one, not the young
Mhm.
one, the bearded one.
Mhm.
And then Joel Webben is a younger man, and he's also bearded, and he's out of Texas. And I'm not sure who he's advisor to or anything. But if anybody ever wants an example of the American Taliban, I'm just like, go listen to Joel Webben.
Mm.
Yeah, he wants
Sounds
Christian
intense
nationalist
one.
version of Sharia law in the United States.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And we all know that Christian nationalism is not good as a blanket solution for anything. That is
Right.
awful
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
goes against everything that the United States and America was founded on.
Right. But when you get to the marketing side of it, that's where you get to your preachers. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up under Ken Copeland,
Mm.
right? And you look at like when Inside Edition challenged him over his claim about flying in that big tube full of demons. When you are absorbed in an ideology that others, your fellow humans, for whatever reason, it's easy to dismiss your fellow humans for whatever reason. Um, Voltaire said, "Anyone who can make you believe absurdities can lead you to cause atrocities."
I believe that for sure, for sure.
He stated that during the French Revolution.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just something that like these charismatic, seemingly powerful, seemingly strong, typically men, there's I don't know, it's just like I want to say I don't get it, but I do because I have just blindly taken somebody's recommendation on something on a much smaller scale.
right,
But if someone were to tell me that, again, on a much smaller scale, that influencer on social media, this is a good product. I have tried this product. I like this product. I have all of these. I have 80,000 followers. All of these people like me. This is a good product. You should buy this product. A lot of those people are going to buy the product because Ashley St. Clair said you should
right,
without looking into anything else about it. And
right.
like, I get it, but it's such manipulation. Like
Yes,
on a grand scale, like a community or a congregation or the country.
right,
Who wants to, who thinks that they are good or strong or worthy enough to be the president of the United States anyway? That's wild behavior.
You have to be a narcissist to seek that high of a level of authority position in any organization. If that's your goal, if
Yeah.
that's your drive. I
You
mean,
want to believe that there would be good people running for president or to be a world leader, but
right,
you have to think about what drives somebody to want to have that much power and control and strength and influence.
right. And that's where things get kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, about a year and a half ago, I was talking with some folk, and I was telling them about trying to translate to them how financially advantageous the evangelical movement is set.
Okay.
They got massive war chests full of money,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the Mormon church alone has like a war chest of like $800 billion. And that's supposed to be that's supposed to be charity money,
Mm-hmm.
but it's doomsday money. And when you got that kind of money set aside and you got individuals with unscrupulous political ideologies because you are in a doomsday cult,
Mm-hmm.
um, if you have, if you think you can push things along like the evangelicals have from my side of the camp where I grew up, and that Christian nationalist just in the Assemblies of God church, you know, trying to just to bring this trying to self-fulfill the prophecies of the book of Revelation, trying
Mm-hmm.
to force it. Totally skipping over that no man knows the day or the hour thing, right? Just totally ignoring that because it doesn't fit their narrative,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, I worked with a MAGA guy for a while that was actually excited that Damascus was being bombed
Mm-hmm.
because of prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up listening to or hearing Hal Lindsey, author of The Late Great Planet Earth, and in his end times prophecies, of course, it was the Cold War in 1970s. He was talking about a nuclear Armageddon. And of course, I went on into the Air Force because, peace through superior firepower. And look at us 50 years later. I just found out this morning
Mm-hmm.
that Trump let the latest SALT agreement expire back in
Or is
the
like
beginning.
about to, or did, or is about
No,
to.
did. Yeah, he just let it slide. Well, if it expires, it expires. And it's like this is not doing my end times anxiety any good.
I can imagine. So what is that? What could that mean then? What? Because I saw something that was like he wanted it to stay in place, but then switch to essentially if it expires, it expires.
Yes.
What are the like ramifications of that? Of that? I mean, flip flop, hypocrisy, whatever you want to call it.
Um, the SALT treaty is the
Mhm.
Strategic Arms Limitation Agreement, right? With no strategic arms limitation agreement active, there's no limits on strategic arms.
Mhm.
Um, Within the last few days, Pete Hegseth has told satellite makers, "Good enough now is better than perfect later."
Mm.
And if he's addressing the satellite companies that way, I bet he's approaching the armaments companies like that.
Mm.
Um, the Department of Defense has put pressure, or Hegseth anyway, has put pressure on manufacturers of rockets and missiles to ramp up manufacturing.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's I I don't know what to do to shut it down.
I mean, that is an awful lot of pressure to put on yourself, first of all.
I know I can't do it by myself, but I don't. I mean, I have a lot of ideas.
Uh-huh.
I have a lot of ideas that sound really good on paper, but
Mhm.
as soon as you get one human involved, it becomes problematic immediately.
Mm. And that's one person is not much of a coalition.
Right. There's in the DSM-5,
Mhm.
there's the dissociative disorders, And there's this thing called this fourth category that's unspecified dissociative disorder.
Hmm.
And that can be broadly applied to what can loosely be referred to as cult brain,
Ah, okay.
right? And then you look at somebody like Pastor Greg Locke, using the term loosely, but you look at Greg Locke from down there in Nashville. He actually wrote a deliverance handbook on how to deliver yourself from demons. That's a religious OCD.
Hmm.
Just like Lance Wallnau with his Seven Mountains Mandate. That's his religious OCD. And then you tie that to the unspecified dissociative disorder,
Mm.
then plug in whatever religious OCD with heavy doses of fear and manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And people, there's just some people I can't talk to. I
Yeah.
haven't been able to speak with my dad for months.
Mm. That must be hard.
Fox
Yeah.
News, Newsmax, Right Side Broadcasting.
It seems I have had a bug in my brain recently about how to hold those media companies accountable. And I feel like that's where my brain is going because they have done such irreparable harm to millions and millions of people. It's sanctioned brainwashing. It's just lying. It's lying to the American people. It's an agenda. It's manipulation. It's structured messaging. It's talking points. It's entertainment under
But
the guise of news, just incessant
well,
messaging
and
in
it's not
people's
a and
brains.
it's not even just the news cycle.
Mhm.
How often do you hear about? Well, like a couple of days ago, I heard this brand new commercial from Chevrolet about their pickup trucks.
Mhm.
How they're built for the driver, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking, but who's the driver,
Mhm.
right? Who are they building their truck for? So then the guy goes there and he's just looking for a little truck to get around town in.
Mhm.
Oh, we got one of those. Or I just want a pickup that I can throw my canoe in to go down to the lake and go fishing. Oh, well, we got one of those. Oh, well, heck, I'm a gardener and I pull a couple of I pull a trailer with a couple of zero turn tractors on it, mowers on it. Oh yeah, we got a truck for you.
Mhm.
So it's like it's that hook. But then you get into the branding wars. I've actually seen guys get into fistfights over which is better, Ford truck or Chevy truck.
That is bananas to me.
Right? I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it comes down to tribalism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I mean, I live
so,
in Chicago. There's very much a Cubs versus White Sox like
yes,
competition rivalry for absolutely no reason.
or Cowboys versus Chiefs, or race car driver versus race car driver, or whatever, anything
Yeah.
versus anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's not even get into poly market.
I'm just starting to learn about all that, and I am not having a good time.
Yeah, no, that's not a good time.
Yeah.
That's not a good time at all. As soon as I
But I'm
heard
over here like, how can I be making money off of this, but then also not destroying my own brain and the world at the same time?
right, and it's crazy, but it's it, and I never even pulled out my note sheet. I made up that whole note sheet, and here we are
Mhm.
wandering around anyway.
Yeah.
But it's good stuff still.
Yeah.
Um, Marketing like from Alex Jones
Mm-hmm.
with deep his iodine solution that's proprietarily extracted from deep water seaweed. Just all this craziness. Or you look at Jim Baker, one of the commercials I wanted to share with you. I'll just describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Baker sells these 5-gallon buckets of soup.
Okay.
That's a very appropriate response. All right. But hang on. It gets better.
Mm-hmm.
Doomsday's coming, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna run out of storage space, right?
Sure.
So you can replace your bed frame with these soup buckets and just put a piece of plywood on top and put your mattress on top.
Why not?
Or you could use them to make a new coffee table in your living room, or if you need to partition part of your basement for a guest room. And I'm like,
I have instructions for that on Pinterest.
I mean, it
On
makes sense to me.
Pinterest?
To me, it makes sense if you're a prepper that you would use that space to store water, not this endless horrible soup.
Yeah. I mean, if and when at some point you get through the soup, wouldn't you imagine you would probably try to repurpose it for something that you would want to be like airtight or watertight, not your bed frame?
Right?
Okay.
Anyway,
Do people actually believe? Okay, well, let's just assume that Alex Jones and the like don't believe in the supplements they sell. How do they get people to buy them? Because presumably, based on supplements and advertising, is how all of these media entities are being propped up.
Marketing.
it's all about, it goes down to the marketing. Okay, so one of the most common grifts outside of the supplements, the most
Mhm.
common grift in the right wing movement is coffee.
Okay.
Not just like I met this roaster and they gave me a tour and they helped me put together a very special blend of coffee just for my listeners. And you can
Yeah.
support me by buying my Jeremy's the Quartering coffee. And I'm
Yeah.
using him as a specific example because he's always trying to hawk his coffee.
Hmm.
I have less problems with people who have merch, especially if it's just fun merch,
Yeah. Merch is
right? Merch is merch. But when you're selling supplements, when you're selling anything edible and consumable,
merch.
um, it gets sketchy. But
For
It's
sure.
like that FDA, so they can say anything.
right, right,
So
and
that's
then
why supplements are popular.
right, supplement. Okay, I don't know if you heard that. Amy was saying
Bits
that
and pieces.
supplements are not regulated by the FDA.
That
Like,
doesn't sound right.
no, it doesn't sound right. So that's why they can run these grifts like they can.
Okay.
Okay. Now they may have certain manufacturing standards, but they can claim proprietary ingredients.
Mm.
That's why there's those crazy those guy oriented pills at the
Mhm.
or convenience store, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Or those pick me ups, those energy boost packets, right? With a
Yeah.
proprietary, blend of what am I eating here? And
Mhm.
you put a little bit of, I don't know, anyway, whatever.
Dried up rattlesnakes and rat poison.
Right. But when you have somebody like Alex Jones, who has so much hype around everything else and has so much fear, oh, the deep state's coming for you. He used to hawk this whole idea that the Democrats were building these FEMA camps to be used as prison camps for all these conservatives, and then listen, you can imagine the fun I had with that footage when alligator Alcatraz popped up. I'm like, Alex was warning you about this, guys, and you guys are doing it now. You're no better than the preachers I grew up with who said, oh, if we let those gays get married, those pedophiles are going to be up next.
I mean, even like when we were kids, we heard the,
Yeah.
Humans, fear
Fear,
and
what's
sex.
up?
fear and sex are the two top motivators of humans.
I believe that. But it
Sex
like
sells everything.
when you I mean, as kids, you heard the when you point your finger at somebody, you have four fingers pointing back at you kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's they're building camps, they're fear mongering that they're going to put you in camps. Meanwhile, they're over here building them and pushing all the blame and the responsibility to the opposite side. Meanwhile, they're setting up shop and buying up land and warehouses for all these data centers that are killing the planet, and that make me really sad.
Data centers and prison camps inside of massive warehouses. Um, where was it? I just heard a story on Status Quo News this morning where a small town was being sold off piece by piece for a data center, and the people found out about it and rose up, and from what I understand, the data center is getting shut down. The whole idea is getting shut down, but it was the government was telling them, oh no, we're not gonna do that, and then go do
Mhm.
their closed door meeting, and oh, guess what, you're getting a data center.
Mm.
And it's just like,
I was talking with somebody about it that I think they're trying to install a data center in somewhere in Arizona.
yeah,
And the local people that are for the data center are pitching it like, oh, it's job creation. Meanwhile, it's killing the planet, and whatever is happening in those data centers are automating so much work that's eliminating so many jobs. So even if you have, let's say, a couple dozen people working in this center, it's eliminating jobs and water and the ozone layer, which is doing a tremendous amount of damage.
when I was a non-traditional college student, and so like 20 years ago, um 25 years ago now, holy cow, 25 years ago, I went back to school. I started college, and I was pursuing a history degree. I had to give up on the engineering thing. I was filling in some business stuff because that's my background. But one of the history professors I had taught a trilogy of classes: the history of American architecture,
Mm,
the history of technology, and the history of science. A great triad of classes.
great.
In the history of technology class, one of our books that was required reading was The Player Piano by Kurt Vonnegut.
I haven't read that one.
In that book, in that story, there's a factory that camera picked up your action in the background. That was funny. But in there, there's this factory that pops up in town, and the only people that have jobs are the engineers that actually work at the factory.
Mm-hmm.
Factory provides everything for everybody. I turned around, all I had was my nose and eyes poking up out of the screen. This is gonna be fun to edit. um, and I'm probably not gonna do much editing.
Okay.
I like rambling thoughts. But anyway, hmm.
You were talking Vonnegut.
Oh yeah, the player piano. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The player piano. So the factory creates jobs just for the engineers, and everybody else is basically living on a universal basic income.
Mm-hmm.
That concept wasn't a concept. I mean, yeah, it was just everybody had like this basic income, and there was nothing else to do. So everybody would meet at a bar, and it was the previous day's bar, right?
Okay.
They would meet at that bar, and then they would have a parade to that day's bar, and they'd
Mm.
hang out there all day. And then the next day they would get back up and meet back at that bar and do a parade to the next bar. And that's that the characters in the book, that's their existence. And everybody else in town is also meeting at their previous day's bar to have their parade to their next bar. And so this is the existence for everybody in town. The problem is if something breaks at the factory and there's a hiccup, of course it creates this ripple through everything. And so it was a cautionary tale against where they're trying to put us. And they man, that's one of the problems with these people that love these dystopian novels. They forget to read the ending.
Mm.
They
What
forget to
happens at the end?
everything collapses, and society ends up having to figure it out for themselves. But there were a few that were smart enough along the way that kept some of the old knowledge that they had from before
Mm-hmm.
the factory,
Mm-hmm.
that everything turned out okay.
Mm.
It's kind of like, have you watched the movie Logan's Run?
Mm-mm.
It's a very dystopian environment where everybody voluntarily dies at the age of 30 on carousel. It's called renewal.
Mm-hmm.
But Logan doesn't like this idea, and he finds his way out. And he finds out that you can go outside, you can live outside. It's not a toxic environment like they'd always been told. In fact, there's even life out there. They were told it was a barren wasteland. You have to stay inside.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ends up going back in and getting everybody and taking them back outside. The system collapses behind them. And okay, so there was one guy that was a kid when this whole thing happened, and now he's this old man living in a broke down library with his cats when these kids show up. And so he's going to be like their only anchor point for how to survive the reality outside this provided world. But the thing of it there was they got out. They made that escape. That's not necessarily an easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're escaping any sort of controlled environment.
Yeah.
Be it a mind trap or physically trapped somewhere.
Yeah.
And marketing can get you there. Propaganda. It's a market of lies.
Yeah, it really is.
Truth. And like we stated earlier, the lack of critical thinking and media literacy makes those traps all the more deadly.
Yeah. And I think anyone who's really honest about having a career in advertising or marketing knows that their job is to be manipulative,
Mm-hmm.
for better or for worse, but it's to make the typically company or organization money. That's what they're doing. They're trying to make the product or service as enticing as possible. So you spend your money on that thing. It's a thing that you don't need, but also when you're going between Cubs and White Sox or between Tide and Gain laundry detergent,
Right.
it's marketing probably, unless you have personal experience with it, that's going to make you decide to pick up one versus the other if they're generally the same price. And it's a little unnerving to know that that's been my job for so long.
Right. Well, see, in my experience with marketing, direct marketing
Mm-hmm.
is through in an industry.
Mm-hmm.
Build limousines. And
Mm.
so for a while I actually ran a small factory. I helped build up the factory from the owner's upstairs room
Mm.
into a business that at peak we employed 18 people. Right. And after I became chief operations officer, I also became our webmaster because,
Mm.
chief operations officer does everything.
Yeah.
I had somebody that answered the phone and kept the books. And I had guys out on the floor building stuff. And I had a guy in the office with me that he was my design engineer. And I handled everything else in the business. And this is back when Netflix Netscape and AOL were the browsers on the web.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm dating myself here. But because of the fact that I was advertising for a fairly niche market, being the limo business, that really, really kept me in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Until we got into accent lighting and we started playing with fiber optic accent lighting. That gave me the opportunity to kind of move into some residential stuff.
Mm.
But I couldn't compete with the big guys that were doing like swimming pools and stuff like that.
Mm.
But I had a couple of people that came to me. They're like, "Oh, we like those starry light mirrored ceilings that you make for the limousines. I'd like to do
Mm-hmm.
something like that with the ceiling tiles in my bathroom." That's what one guy actually did. His bathroom, he had like a forest scene on the wall,
Uh-huh.
and he had green shag carpet. Carpet in the bathroom, bad idea, but he had green shag carpet on the floor. And then he had the ceiling tiles painted. He had a small drop ceiling in there, and he had it painted
Okay.
black.
Yeah.
What he wanted to do was poke this end-to-end fiber optic through the ceiling tiles with our twinkle wheel on it, which was just a disc with strategically placed holes in it. And that way, when you're in the bathroom, it's like you're out in the woods under a starry night. And I
I
mean,
love creativity. I
yeah,
see the vision.
I like your creativity, and sure, I'll sell you my product,
Yeah. Do
but
whatever you want with it.
right, but that way I was able to customize one of our product lines, and so
Mhm.
that gave me a little bit of ability to have some flexibility, but we just weren't big enough to really compete on any major market. So I had to stay in that niche
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah.
But it was still a lot of fun. And what I would do is rather than just like our product is the best because it's handcrafted and soldered, no computer components. It's virtually bulletproof as
Mm-hmm.
far as like taking care of it, right? It's real easy to do. I talked to a businessman. Talked to a businessman. I was in Springfield, Missouri. He was down there in Orlando, Florida. His electrician was already gone for the weekend. He had a car that had to go out in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Had no idea what he was doing. I used him like one of those Da Vinci robots because our
Mm-hmm.
system was so simple, and I fixed his car for him. He didn't, and no computers, no nothing like that. It was all relays, everything handcrafted. Now, those who didn't want that handcrafted thing, that was fine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that our systems were customizable directly for their design,
Yeah.
that gave us a leg up on our competition. So I didn't say ours is better because I would
Mm-hmm.
say they got this computerized stuff with ribbon cable. I've got this other stuff and I use plenum cable. You don't have to worry about my wires getting nicked, and it's easy to work on. And you can get the parts at the repair parts at any parts store.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do? Do you want to have to pull a board out of your car and ship it off to some guy and wait 6 weeks for it to get it back if you're lucky? Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
they have one they can swap out with you. Or you can just buy mine and be done with it. And that was my pitch. That's how I did it, you know? And it was a product that would sell itself. So I didn't
Yeah.
really have to market it. I just had to share its attributes, which
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
soft, but it's a soft sell.
Right.
And
Ease, convenience, quality. Those are great things to talk about for a product, especially
right,
if it's niche, because then if you can use this product and you don't have to use this range of products, then why wouldn't you just get the one?
right,
It makes so much sense.
right. But then you get the hard sellers, you know, like Alex Jones with his vitamins, supplements,
Mhm.
or any of the right wing grifters that are selling coffee
Mhm.
or
Yes, you were talking about coffee, and that jumped out in my brain because I listened to Ben Shapiro for years just
mm.
purely for rage purposes. And I remember when he started selling Black Rifle coffee, and I was like, "Okay, great. It's coffee for big, strong American men." And I was like, "Okay, great, whatever." And I just saw Black Rifle coffee in my grocery store down the street in Chicago. I was like, "Oh, this has gotten big. This is for real, for real. People are buying
Do
this."
you know how that happened?
What's up?
Have you heard of Bass Pro Shops?
Yes.
They were selling it.
Oh,
And of
that
course,
makes
Bass Pro Shops a couple 3 years ago bought Cabela's,
Oh,
their number one competitor. So
okay.
Bass Pro Shops and Cabela is all one and the same. And when you got guys all across the country, you
Of a
know,
certain demographic.
yeah,
Mhm.
buying Bass Pro stuff and they can get that coffee and
Right.
their influencers, their guys have been telling them how good it is. Why isn't it going to go ahead and filter into the grocery stores and stuff?
Hmm. That
Now,
makes
here's
distribution wise, that makes so much sense.
okay. So Bass Pro Shops was born in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay.
Okay. I grew up in Monett, about 45 minutes from there. So Bass Pro has always been a thing, right? When I moved to Florida to work on limousines, I was only there about 6 months. One of the guys that worked there comes walking up to me. I'm down in the trunk of the car working on it, installing some sound equipment. And he's like, "Hey, Merlin," that's my street name. He's like, "Hey, Merlin, I want to ask you a question." I'm like, "Sure." He goes, "Do they have any rednecks in Missouri?" And I'm like, "You ever heard of Bass Pro Shop?" And he goes,
Hmm.
"Oh, yeah, man, that's redneck heaven." So that was born in Springfield, Missouri. And he goes, "Oh, so y'all might have a redneck or two up there, huh?" I'm like, yeah, we've got a few up there.
Maybe one or two.
Now, I gotta, at this point, I think it's only appropriate that I give some full disclosure about myself. I don't know that you know this about me. There's not many people over there in Leaving MAGA that do,
Hmm.
but I have a couple of tattoos that I'm going to get blast overs done.
Mm,
I'm not gonna get them covered up because where I come from, symbols are everything.
mm,
All right. So there's my Jerusalem cross,
mm-hmm,
right? Hegseth has that.
mm,
We have them for very different reasons. But for the blast over on that, it's going to be the big black circle with a bar through it,
mm-hmm,
canceling that out. And then my battle flag. I don't know, you can't really.
mm.
Like that was my first tattoo.
Yeah.
I
How does
got
it make you feel to have those still, knowing that your beliefs have changed so much?
um I'm not real proud of them.
Mm,
I denounce them on the regular.
yeah.
There I even went so far as to buy a couple of lace up van braces to put on my
Mm-hmm,
forearms to cover them.
mm-hmm,
I have gone out of my way to wear long sleeve shirts, even a long sleeve t-shirt, or keep a jacket handy. I am not comfortable with them,
yeah.
but usually before people ever even notice that, they've heard at least part of my I'm no longer a MAGA, or
Mm-hmm,
I've left MAGA, or
mm-hmm,
I'm part of leaving MAGA. That usually comes up in the conversation pretty dadgum early,
mm-hmm.
like during the introduction.
Yeah.
um, but I still, and and on the flag, I'm gonna have the same thing done, the
Mm-hmm,
black circle with the bar through it, just like
mm-hmm,
because trying to cover up my past,
mm-hmm,
I feel like that's wrong.
mm.
I've already owned all my mistakes from the past. You know why?
Why?
I had to learn how to do that
Mm-hmm.
because I've had my mistakes weaponized against me way too many times. I
And do you see your tattoos as a memorial of sorts, or do you have like active plans to cover them up?
I'm not gonna cover them up.
Mm.
My approach to tattoos, they all tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them marks a milestone somewhere in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I dare say all of them have at least two, if not three or four different meanings at the same
Mm.
time. Um, but yeah, no, I don't want to cover them up.
Mm.
I own my mistakes. It hurts,
Yeah.
you know, because some people just won't let you get past that,
Yeah.
you know.
I have to say I am I want to say struggling a little bit with hearing you say you've owned your mistakes and want to keep them knowing that they're such charged symbols. It
That's why
makes me think what has changed if they're still being memorialized on your skin.
okay, so yeah, I'm glad you expressed that thought pattern.
Mhm.
Um, it's sort for me putting the cancellation mark over the tattoo
Mhm.
and yet keeping the tattoo presentable and
Mhm.
recognizable is not a matter of continuing to memorialize it, but the that application of that particular blast over is a cancellation of that old thing.
I can understand that.
And I'll have to go through a battle of psoriasis with the healing process from the tattoo.
Mhm.
So the simpler the tattoo, the easier the healing will be.
Mhm.
If I go into something in some elaborate cover up, that's going to require several sessions. And that'll be drawn out over a series of months, if not a couple of years. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have that kind of time. I
Mhm.
could go in and get those two blast overs done in one setting and just be done with it.
Mhm.
It's a matter of convenience as well as marking my history on my body.
Yeah. I can understand that.
It's not an ideology for everybody.
Mhm.
Um, I remember a few years back, I met a young lady who was wanting to get a tattoo done, and she wanted it for the artwork of it. And she had picked out a particular watercolor design that she really liked. And she's like, I just want it for the art. Everybody says you should get a tattoo to mark something. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? You get that tattoo in 10 years, you're going to look at that tattoo and remember where you were when you got it. So even if you're getting it for the art's sake, it's still going to mark a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. So even if you're not intending for it to be a bookmark in your life, it's still a bookmark in your life.
Mm-hmm. I see that. I have 4 small tattoos, and they definitely represent a chapter of my life for sure.
I have 15,
Mm-hmm.
and they mark several chapters in my life.
I can imagine.
I've lived a few lifetimes
I can
in my
imagine that.
almost 62 years.
Yeah. Well, I have 30 years to catch up and get, what, 11 more tattoos.
Right, there you go.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, fear mongering, propaganda,
Mm-hmm.
marketing, it all goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Al Lindsay marketing the doomsday with a nuke, or the satanic panic that the rest of the world was experiencing in the 80s while I was off in the military, but I was there when it sparked.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to kids afterwards that experience what the people on my side of the indoctrination had lashed out with, going to these rock concerts and these punk concerts. Oh, you're going to hell, and then ended up getting in a fist fight.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often it was the ones who were trying to save the people that were losing their cool and throwing first, and just with things that have been going on in the very recent past, like last Thursday, the thing with the Saudis and the U.S. military thing. I'm not going to go into details. And then the follow up Friday morning with that CIA leak around Nani and in reference to Iran. And I'm like, that sparked something of a meltdown because I was already wound up kind of tight anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on a little bit of a sabbatical right now. I'm not doing any
Good
more
for
research.
you.
I
That's smart.
I'm actually trying to get back into therapy, but there's only one therapist in all of St. Louis that's qualified to handle what I've got.
You're saying
Yeah,
roll up your sleeves.
yeah. And there's only one little hiccup, but I've just got to do some paperwork, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that'll smooth it out. If not, I'll have to drop back and punt again. But I'm used to that.
Yeah. I recently
Um,
just broke up with my therapist that I had been seeing for 3 years, and I have awful health insurance at the moment. And so everything would have to be out of pocket. But I'm really working toward finding, well, I say really working toward, but I haven't done anything yet. I would like to find another therapist that does EMDR therapy, which I don't fully understand it, but it's like tactile and it's supposed to rewire traumatic experiences in your brain.
yeah,
And I
I
don't know a
actually,
ton about it, but it sounds really interesting to me.
it is really interesting, and I investigated it.
Okay.
I was gonna try to get into it, but I wasn't able to get appointments until like
Mhm.
2:30 in the afternoon, and my therapist was asking that I not consume any cannabis that day
Mhm.
prior to the session.
Mhm.
And I use cannabis as part of my pain management routine as well as a replacement for my psych meds
Mhm.
because I'm a decade of CBT, and most days I'm pretty good. Some days I am not fit for public exposure. But with EMDR, the way I understand it is that the tactile portion of it is allowing the brain to function in two ways at the same time. So one part of the brain is distracted by the tactile control, the tapping and the
Mhm.
sensation of tapping, while the another part of the brain is working through verbally working through the traumatic events.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't understand the finite mechanics of it, of how,
Yeah.
but it is a proven therapy.
So I
It,
read.
and so it's like, if it wasn't for that other thing, or if I could do it like first thing in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe I'd be more apt to jump in and give it a try.
Yeah. I hope you
But
find somebody who has a morning session available.
I now there is one other therapist here in town that may be qualified to deal with what I'm wanting to deal with or work
Mm-hmm.
through, and she focuses on EMDR.
Oh, okay.
And so, depending on how things go financially, because my insurance won't pay out of pocket expenses for any medical practitioner outside of network, out of
Mm.
network.
Mm-hmm.
And so, unless I can get a prior authorization, but this gal doesn't do insurance. So, what I would have to do is go out to the VA to get
Okay.
a prior authorization for my insurance to pay for it, not them, because I can't do community care through the VA because they have a behavioral health department, even
Mm.
though they don't have anybody that's niche enough to fit what I need, unless I can get some board caveat. I don't want to, it should not be this difficult to find help. It should not
No,
be this
it's
difficult.
no, it
Health,
should not. It is
healthcare, mental
atrocious.
health care, physical health, mental health care is
Yes.
physical health care.
Yep. 1,000% agree with you.
And it should not be this difficult to get healthy.
No, it should not. It should not be that difficult to get healthy, to stay healthy, to maintain your health. I think it is a tragedy
I mean,
that
don't even.
the healthcare system makes things so difficult and is so expensive. It's awful. It really is.
My girlfriend is diabetic,
Mm,
and she uses a pod and sensor system.
hmm.
It should not be this difficult for anybody
No.
to get healthy and stay healthy, legitimately healthy, not that Bobby Jr. nonsense.
Okay. I think he's absolutely nuts. I am on board with making food be food again.
Mm-hmm.
So that part I'm chill with because I feel like food has started to taste less like food as it has become more mass produced and um, genetically modified.
There are reasons why American produced foodstuffs are not allowed as imports in other countries.
And I actually don't understand at all like food sources and what is and isn't regulated. I am just so appalled by food systems in the country as well.
We just had a food labeling measure fail in Missouri.
What did that do or not do?
Um, if you have a sudden change in ingredients in the production system or the supply line, you may or may not have to change your ingredients label as you put it through.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm. I just sighed so deeply. Like, okay, all right.
yeah. Acceptance commitment therapy. I can
Not
only
when I have it
control
done.
I can only control what I can control,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I that
Okay, and so by that logic, it is not on your shoulders to diffuse nuclear war.
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. But the anxiety of the old indoctrination is still there.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Why does it feel like it's just on you to do that?
Oh, I know it's not just on me to do.
Yeah.
It's just it's my brain. It's the still traumatized portion of my brain
Yeah.
responding to this propagandistic yelling of destroying the world to bring Jesus back. And it's like, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
That sounds like it would be tremendously frustrating.
It is. It is. And I mean, in the last conversation I had with my dad, and this is when I knew I wouldn't be able to talk to him anymore, was when he was like, maybe the pole flip will happen. And I don't know if you know anything about the pole flip conspiracy theory, but yeah, the poles would like not necessarily flip north and south, but flip by 90 degrees and back. And that geomagnetic realignment would cause like all kinds of like natural disasters, and it would be really horrific. But or maybe there'll be a World War III, and all the evil will be wiped out with nuclear weapons. And I'm just like, at that point, I realized that there was no way I could talk to my dad, because he would rather see all of humanity erased from the planet, everybody gone, than to think anything else.
Hmm.
Because in his worldview, it's McCarthyism in a religious context. There's a demon behind every blade of grass, behind every rock, behind every tree, waiting to trip you up and take you to hell.
That's
Which
an exhausting way to live.
And I'm really glad I don't believe in hell anymore.
Hmm.
That was liberating. That was truly liberating.
Good.
It still haunts me a little bit on occasion. Jenna DeVry.
Okay.
I only found out about her because she did an interview on Eric Schwarzenski's Preacher Boys podcast.
Okay.
And Jenna DeVry has a song called Hell is Real. And she grew up in the evangelical movement. And in her song, she says, I wish hell was real, so you would know what it's like to have brimstone raining down on your tombstone.
Mm.
Yeah. As she's doing this in an old church in a miniskirt.
Hey, you said sex sells.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's
Yeah.
both of them, fear and sex.
Yep. That's what Amy said, fear and sex. And those are the two things that'll manipulate people into doing all sorts of things. And sometimes you can mix the two. All right, baby doll. She's such a wonderful woman. I am so blessed to have her as my partner.
That's sweet. The way you talk about her makes it seem like she's a very big part of your life.
She is a major portion of my life. She really is. She's helped me meet a lot of really good people here in St. Louis.
That's wonderful.
I came here for her, and she introduced me to her church congregation. Huh? She said she's not going to go for a walk if I keep complimenting her. But she's, like I stated earlier, she's the music minister over there at Gethsemane Lutheran.
Mm.
Plays the pipe organ and the piano, and we've got a clavinova that she plays on occasion, and she's the choir director. And it's a progressive Christian community, and they accept that I'm an agnostic, and they understand why.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, we have the same end goals: love your neighbors and treat them kindly. It's really that simple.
It really is.
And that's why I like them. And
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Cheryl, she's a wonderful woman. She really is. And I love the way that she handles herself in the pulpit.
Mm.
And it kind of, she's caught me off guard a couple of times when she's dropped a random F-bomb, but it was appropriately placed one. So
Good
yeah,
for her.
and then on Easter Sunday, her sermon was about, it was something that she had used before, but she kind of expanded a little bit, elaborated on it a little bit. But she was talking about how some people say you can't sing certain songs in church.
Hmm.
This is after she steps up to the pulpit and she just starts singing a few bars of some song that everybody knew from the 80s. And everybody just started singing along with her. And then she's like, some people say you can't sing secular songs in church. Well, you just sang that song in church. And so now it's a church song. And that was the theme for her whole sermon. It was the best Easter sermon I have ever heard. I love this woman.
That's great. That's great.
Um, but yeah, there's a great community there, and that's why I'm there. It's full of empathic, kind-hearted people, and that's the antithesis to where I came from.
I'm happy you have that now.
I'm truly blessed. I wish more people could find this kind of peace in their lives, and then maybe the world wouldn't be so keyed up, you know. But it comes back to the marketing and the propaganda. You know, Alex Jones has been in front of that camera for what, 30 years? Thank God the Onion took him out.
Yeah, seems like forever. That the Onion is a Chicago company, and so I think there's a there's a little sense of smugness that I feel like comes through that the Onion bought him out. It's just like whatever.
I think the
That's
word for
fun.
that I think the word for that is Schadenfreude.
Yeah, which is a complex feeling for sure.
It definitely is. It definitely is because yeah. Anyway, my younger son asked me how I felt about that, and I told him I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I thought it was
And really
absolutely
on
hilarious.
brand for the Onion as well.
Yeah,
They crush
and
that.
I love what they're doing with it.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen any of the bits yet.
No, I was gonna say, like, what's the game plan for it? Well, I know that
So
like, money is gonna go back to families.
right, well
That's what they're doing with the brand.
they're spoofing Infowars.
Nice.
Okay, so like the I forget the comedian. He's actually attached to Adult Swim from back in the
Okay.
day, right? But he does this whole Alex Jones voice. You know, he's got his Alex Jones style shirt on, and he's doing this spiel, and he breaks off into this thing about send us your pee, we can extract the gold from it. And I mean, just like beautiful. Keep
Wow.
that energy coming.
Mm.
They've actually talked about in the long run turning InfoWars into a comedy platform that platforms transgender comedians.
Interesting.
I love it. I love it. I think that's kind of a niche market, but it's a great place to start considering how much Alex Jones hated trans people.
I mean, I'm sure the Onion will come up with something perfect
Oh
for
yeah.
whatever it is,
Oh yeah.
and it'll hit in just the way it needs to.
Oh yeah. I hope so. I really hope so. I'm looking forward to it. But I don't know what else we can really talk about in this particular episode. Would you be open to maybe doing something down the road where we actually would like do some side by side comparisons?
Sure.
Um, I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head what that would exactly look like, but I'm wanting to try to figure out a way to help people recognize some of the linguistic tactics
Hmm.
that are
Okay.
used in different types of marketing.
Okay.
Uh, like, I mean, you can get a really energetic commercial from a car company, but
Hmm.
you can also get a really energetic like Jeep. They make great, energetic, adventurous commercials.
Hmm.
So does McDonnell Douglas.
Hmm.
You know,
There's the messaging and the I mean, I think the whole brand identity. Like that's what I wanted to do for a job is brand strategy, which is like either starting a brand from scratch, building it into what it is, or taking a brand that wants to shift and switch positions and figuring out the new direction. And that definitely includes tone of voice, it includes the visual storytelling and all of it. And that entirely encompasses the energy, the music, the language you use. It's all accounted for in brand guidelines.
Right. Just like when Aunt Jemima rebranded as Pearl Mill.
Mm.
Aunt Jemima pancake mix and pancake syrup, they rebranded into Pearl Mill because the racist stereotype that was presented through the Aunt Jemima branding
Mm-hmm.
was no longer acceptable on a large enough scale. It was unacceptable enough that the rebranding kept the product on the shelf. And people may be like, yeah, I remember when, but
Mm-hmm.
what did it really change?
Mm-hmm.
Except the company's interaction with the people.
Mm-hmm.
They could have chosen to say, nah, we're going to stick with the old stuff. People be like, all right, well, we're not going to buy your stuff then.
Yeah,
So rebranding is a method of survival,
for
which
sure.
again is why I'm concerned about what is MAGA going to dissolve into as it crumbles. What are all these little pieces going to be?
Yeah.
How are they going to appear? You know, just because they change their names and maybe change their face of this particular
Mm-hmm.
group, or they've rebranded it's this small group like Young American Revival,
Mm-hmm.
rebranded down there in Arkansas out of TPUSA. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to have a new face. Who are these guys? Where do they come from? If nobody does their background work, or if there's not somebody going, oh, hey, yeah, I remember when this happened on this date. Here's the evidence. You need
Yeah.
to watch out for those guys. And so that's why it's up to people like myself and Jay and
Mm-hmm.
anybody else who wants to join in on this effort of watching their local neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Because here in St. Louis, I know of at least 2 TPUSA chapters.
Wow.
One's at St. Louis University and one's at Washington University.
I was gonna say that makes sense. It's in a lot of colleges, right?
Right.
It's
And they
kind of
tried
how
to
they
get
built the movement.
they tried to get a chapter into one of the high schools here.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And I think that got weaseled out pretty quick. They are slipping into high schools in Missouri. I can't put boots on the ground for myself outside of St. Louis. It's
mm-hmm.
gonna be a lot for me to cover here.
Yeah.
But before I ever try to directly engage with TPUSA or whatever variant I run into out here,
Mm-hmm.
I need to recruit a couple of people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it alone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not walking into that lion's den alone.
Yeah.
No, I ain't doing it. I'm smarter than that.
They say there's strength in numbers.
Yes. I have a couple of people in mind. One has expressed some cautious interests because they're also ex-MAGA, but their walk through MAGA was not nearly as deep as mine. They have a really interesting backstory, but that's not doesn't matter right now. And then the other individual is they're interested in a very limited capacity.
Okay.
So they're more interested in like being my co-pilot if I'm out doing some observation work and I'll have my phone mounted on the dash, but I'm driving. I can't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily keep my head on a swivel around traffic. So that's when you have a co-pilot / navigator who also has a camera who can look out the side of the vehicle to see what's going on. And they're the ones that are giving the auditories back to the driver so that they can get situational awareness of what's going on outside the vehicle, outside their field of view. I don't know that I will need to employ those tactics at
Mm-hmm.
this point because ICE is not active in St.
Mm-hmm.
Louis on a large scale at the moment. Not that I've heard anyway. I'm tapped in a couple of places where I can kind of keep an ear on things.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much going on. I've got very particular things that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
I have to limit my time right now, but I've got these strategies in mind. I was raised Cold War. You have your primary mission, and then you have your side projects, and then if anything goes sideways, you have contingencies, and then you have contingencies for your contingencies, and contingencies for the contingencies for the contingencies. It's like,
All the way
yeah.
down.
I walk into a restaurant and just it's as much trauma brain as it is training. I walk into a restaurant, I'm automatically looking for secondary exits and all other tertiary exits. I have thought to myself on more than one occasion, oh shit, I don't see a readily available exit door. But
Yeah.
there's a window big enough I could throw a chair through. I just,
And I'm glad there are people like you who look for those things, because meanwhile, I'm over here. If we are at a restaurant, I'm just walking in, sitting down, and looking at the menu. So if
right.
something happens, I'm glad that somebody is thinking about how to get out of there.
Yeah. And it kind of sucks, but you know, it's part of who I am. It's part of what I am. And I've embraced it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's part of that self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
I threw away a lot of shit I didn't like.
Mm.
That was just part of the deconstruction. 10,000 hours of research in a 3-year period to deconstruct myself.
It's a lot of hours.
I I lived alone, had nothing else to do, you know. Well, 2 years of that I lived alone.
Mm.
Yeah, the first that was where I did the bulk of my research was in that
Mm-hmm.
other 2 years. Didn't have anything else to do.
So why not deconstruct your whole life?
Right. Well, I mean, I needed to deconstruct my faith after I
Yeah.
started seeing things I didn't agree with, but because of where I grew up, I also had to deconstruct my politics. Because in the Assemblies of God Church, boys are raised to think that they need to be a preacher, a politician, a soldier, or a businessman, or any combination thereof. As an
Mm.
I was radicalized with a militant mindset by the time I was 14.
Mm. Just
Yeah, I
the
don't
paths are laid out for you. You pick one, and then everything else just goes away.
yeah.
Huh.
Well, if you listen to Monty Mater's backstory,
Mm.
you know, she actually graduated from Liberty University.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Her dad's plan for her life was that she was going to be on the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. Told her that as a kid. Had
Mm.
her whole life that was his singular goal for her.
Wow.
She fronts a death metal band now.
That's
Great on her. She's
awesome.
spicy. She's got a lot more energy and to deal with this than I do. She's got a lot more drive than I do. I think she's probably more healed than I am, or maybe she's just got more spite and knows how to use it. I don't know. I don't know. I
Mm.
love what she's doing, but yeah,
You like her special sauce, whatever it is.
yeah. But I also like April the Joy. I like Tim
Mhm.
Whitaker. Of course, our leaving MAGA girl, Jenny Gage, Live Take
Mhm.
Two. That woman's got a backstory and a half.
She sure does.
And
Sure does.
she's one of the reasons why anytime I hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm an ex-Mormon," I'm like, "Great on you." It's not just good on you, great on you. Because as part of my deconstruction, a big portion of my research was comparative cult studies,
Mm.
not comparative religious studies.
Mhm.
I was doing my deconstruction during the hottest portion of the anti-Scientology protest
Mm.
in LA and Clearwater.
Yeah.
So as I'm deconstructing myself from my Assemblies of God, charismatic, evangelical, Pentecostal, full gospel self, watching these people and listening to Doug Scott Kramer, who he and I were supposed to work together, but unfortunately he passed before he could hug his mom and his sister,
Mm.
which was the prerequisite before he and I could start working together.
Mm.
Um, he's was an ex Scientologist, and I learned a lot from him. Um, and he and I were going to start working together because he took a look at some of my work and he was seeing where I was connecting the CIA with a bunch of different cults throughout history,
Mhm. Okay.
and including the denomination I grew up in. The Assemblies of God Church actively supported Operation Condor via a shortwave radio station that they operated out of Quito, Ecuador, that went by the call signs of HCJB. I have one video on that so far.
Mhm.
I one of our associates with Leaving MAGA helped I'm
Mhm.
sorry, Ray, helped me do a little research, and he
Mm.
hooked me up with a couple of books that I've converted to audio files from the PDF. And one of these days I'm going to sit down and I'm going to record listening to these things because this is stuff that needs to get out. I've already
Yeah.
started working on Billy Graham. I did a few videos on Doug Wilson. I'm done with him. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just so sick of that guy.
And a lot of people are working on him.
Yeah, but and a lot of people have worked on Greg Locke,
Mm.
and I took on Victor Davis Hanson once, twice now. I want to do some more work with him because I'm a historian, and he's on that level. He's offensive to me. Just on
Mm-hmm.
that level, he's offensive to me. And my dad loves him, and
Yeah.
he brought in my dad's brain with all that nonsense, and so there's a little bit of spite there. So I've got to pick and choose which ones I get into with him about. But I did a Victor Davis Hanson uh, response video, and somebody responded to me with "You're a dweeb," to which
Oh,
I to which I responded, "I've been called worse."
dweeb is a choice.
Right? I mean, tell me you're a boomer without telling me you're a boomer.
Mm.
Technically, if you look at I'm on that cusp. I might be a boomer, but then again, I might be
Mm.
Gen X because nobody can really agree on that cusp. I was
Mm.
born in the middle of '64.
Mm.
Somebody please tell me what generation do I belong to if it really matters?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you are a cusp in between.
Well, maybe that plays in my favor. I can just ignore both groups and do it my way. I like that idea.
There you go.
But yeah, this fear and sex, marketing,
Yeah.
manipulation, propaganda, it's
Rampant.
whether you're talking about selling razors or propaganda around the Epstein files.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm a trained advocate against domestic and sexual violence and human trafficking. And I'm not trained, but I work as an advocate for homeless intervention.
Mm.
Everything about this administration is repugnant to me.
Mm. I can understand why.
When I doubled down on MAGA, I was also actively campaigning on the phone banks for Eric Greitens,
Mm.
who was a Republican candidate for the state of Missouri governor's office. He won. He ended up getting ousted. There was a lot of craziness around that, but turns out he was not a good guy. And I'm sorry that I backed that.
Yeah.
I am now an unspecified voter. In 2024, I voted a straight Democrat ticket for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I will not. There's nothing the Republican Party can do to ever get me back. You know, and it depends on whether or not some other party popped up that actually presented enough promise and enough strength
Mm.
to be able to make an appearance and make a difference. I have to be an active voter. I have to be, and I have and feel like it's partly my responsibility as a journalist and a researcher and somebody who just gives a shit to try to help other people try to understand or at least become interested in trying to understand. I mean, the biggest, I think the two biggest debates in St. Louis right now. One, what to do with the settlement money from the Rams moving.
Mm.
A bunch of people that are wanting it poured into homeless support and housing. There's other people that are wanting to do other stuff with it. There's that's a big thing. The other big thing that is a local issue, big local issue, is the debate that's been going on for decades about merging St. Louis City with St. Louis County.
Mm.
The idea is, and if it's done right, St. Louis City doesn't just become an incorporated part of St. Louis County, but the whole thing becomes an integrated administration. Problem is, we've got these different little boroughs in town that all have their own little mayors
Mm.
that would get gobbled up in the transition. So you can imagine the power struggle that's happening.
Okay.
There's one group that says, well, we could merge her and just leave the city of St. Louis with their own fire department and their own trash collection and their own police department. It's like, how is that a merger?
Mm.
That's a merger in name only. No. If we're gonna do this, if we're gonna build this mega community, then everybody needs to have a share in the resources, just like everybody's going to be contributing to the resources.
Mm.
There needs to be one central police system to where everybody's cross accountable instead of a bunch of different little departments scattered across this alleged metropolis.
Mm.
So these are two local contentions, and then
Yeah.
we have a Republican sitting in D.C. that I would love to see gone, and Wagner. She's been there forever. She's not a friend of the people of Missouri, and we have a gentleman that lives here in in the St. Louis area who is running to unseat her.
Mm.
And he's a veteran, a career veteran, or a career military.
Mm.
Smart guy. He was a colonel, brilliant dude. He talks a little funny because he's from St. Louis. But he's brilliant. He's well spoken. He's very empathetic. He's a gentleman in every sense of the word. And he's very professional. And when somebody's like, well, why should I vote for you? And he's like, well, because for one, I believe in term limits. And for two, here's my platform compared to her platform, what she's given you. And if you don't like me, you can vote me right back out. I don't mind. But what I'm offering, is it or is it not better than the status quo? I mean, do you just want to keep on with what you know? Or do you want to try something different with the idea that you could change it again in the future?
Mm.
And that voter was like, huh, well, that's a consideration I hadn't considered before. And I was like, well, that's interesting wording, but it's St. Louis area. um, but yeah, some people just don't stop and think that, oh, wait a minute, I can change my mind. I don't have to listen to Greg Locke and think that I can't be a Christian and also vote Democrat.
Mm.
I don't have to buy that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I can be a Christian or a Christian adjacent and I can still vote Democrat. I can, you know,
Many do.
yes, many do. James Tallarico.
Mm.
Because of the fact that I like James Tallarico, I've been told I don't have any street cred as a Christian, but I'm an agnostic, so I'm not looking for street cred as a Christian. I
Mm-hmm.
just happen to hang out with some folks that I think are really good examples of what I think a Christian should be. Um, Somebody asked me the other day, and it cost me a subscriber on YouTube, whatever. I don't care. I'm not here to chase clout. But somebody asked me the other day if I have a ghost in my house. And without giving it any further thought, I'm like, no, why do you ask? After I thought about it, I'm like, oh, if I don't have a ghost in my house, I don't have the Holy Ghost in my house.
Oh, okay.
Therefore, I'm off limits to them.
Hmm.
It's a really strange mindset, but it comes back to that indoctrination,
Mm.
marketing, the fear. Oh, we were where I grew up, it was King James only. You had
Mm.
the King James Bible and you had your Strong's exhaustive concordance. That's all you need to find your answers in the Bible.
Mm.
The church nearly split when a secondary translation was suggested as a cross reference only. The church nearly split over that.
Wow.
They didn't get that, but the women got their pantsuits because pantsuits were acceptable in the office, and we are business minded religion. So the women won. That was another debate that nearly split the church. But the corporate minded individuals were like, yeah, these girls got a point. So yeah, people are strange,
Life-changing issues like pants.
right? Or pantsuits, or anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, or not having a ghost in your house
Mm.
being a decision making pivot point. I But there are people out there that are like that because they have not been allowed to change.
Mm.
And in my experience, the people who don't want to let you change don't want to change themselves. And they
I
don't
think there's
want to
a
let
lot
you
of truth in
change.
that.
They don't want to let you change because it looks bad on them,
Mm.
especially when it's a parent. If you've had a parent that you always tried to earn their love and never could, you were just never good enough unless you made them look good.
Mm.
Right. And then they loved you when you were making them look good, but you want a little goof up and it's all bad. Um
I know a little bit about that.
yeah, they don't like it when you find yourself. and you decide that you want to make those changes to be you,
Mm.
that you don't want to be a mini me to them, and when you're raised in a high control religion that thoroughly believes in raise them up right in the way they should go or they will never leave, and then you leave, now they need to reflect, oh well, no, I'm not the one that's in the right, they're the one that's in the wrong. Now they can deny any self accountability, and it's tragic, but it's due to brainwashing because of propaganda, manipulation, and bad marketing.
All comes down, all of it comes down to propaganda.
Yep.
And marketing. Yep. Most things.
Most things.
For sure. Yeah. But to answer your question, yes, I would absolutely be down to do another video where we talk more specifically about messaging. I think that would be really interesting.
Great. Fantastic. So
yeah.
I guess we'll work it in the background a little bit and kind of like frame up something and pull together some compare and contrast examples, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I'll make sure to do my homework this time. And sorry, my brain is full. Then we can like talk about the same things and all that good stuff. If we have ads in particular, and I can throw some your way. Actually, recently found this on my bookshelf that I have never read. And it's about very, very old school advertising and advertising techniques.
Oh.
Like, I should flip through this.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it has old school, like car advertising and yeah. All kinds of messaging and tips and stuff.
Last fall, the art museum here in town had a special display of Art Deco from France.
Cool.
And they had some really slick cars and the jackets and the dresses and like hood ornaments and like it's just stuff that from back then that had that artistic quality to it. I mean, Art Deco, you're not buying an Art Deco car. You're buying a piece of art that you can drive. It's just beautiful. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I really enjoyed my history of advertising classes in college, and there's a reason why advertising is collectible, and people collect signage and through the evolutions of brands like a Chevy, for example. Yeah. I think it's cool when brands used to be art.
For a couple of generations in our family, we collected Coca-Cola stuff because our family name is Coke. It's not spelled the same way, but phonetics. It's fun.
Yeah.
Words can be fun.
Words can be fun.
All right, we need to get out of here. I'd only set this up for an hour and a half. We're in 2 hours, and I figured that an hour and a half was probably going to be too much. Then you get a couple of big brains together, and conversation happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to talk. This did not go at all the way I expected, but I also had no expectation for how it was going to go. And I'm glad that it went all the different directions that it did.
So am I, because in a lot of ways, that's how life works. And same with marketing. And when you're caught up in a conspiracy theory world, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. The propaganda feeds back on itself and wanders you all over the place. And just like my camera's doing.
It has been. Well, good luck editing and following.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. It's probably going to be pretty straightforward, I think.
Good.
All right. Well, Shannon, thanks for accepting my invitation to come and hanging out with me.
Of course.
I look forward to working together with you some more in the future.
Yeah.
I look forward to working with you more, maybe more directly with the LeavingMAGA thing. Because I got some ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know if folks have picked up on the fact that I know my cults the way I do. But
you just know exponentially more, I think, than everybody else.
And that's I have often referred to my compared my brain to Warehouse 13. I don't know if you ever saw that series on Sci-Fi Channel.
Mm-mm.
It was a secret government warehouse, and it goes back forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And but there's the thing: the inventory is so screwed up, nobody knows what's in there,
Hmm.
right? So an artifact gets introduced into the episode because an alarm goes off. And then
Oh.
there's this whole backstory. So when I'm hearing people talking about their experiences with things, I hear a name pop up. My researcher brain has this drop down menu with all the names that are associated with that individual or that project or that thing. And
Mm-hmm.
then all these other menus pop off to the side with everything that they're related to. And so it's if I don't do something structured when I'm working with somebody else, if there's not some sort of hard outline,
Mm-hmm.
we end up wandering everywhere.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we did not end up in the Amazon rainforest on this excursion,
Not
but
today.
it could happen.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
yeah, let's maybe let's work on an outline together and see
Yeah.
if we can stick to it next time because I think that
Right.
would be helpful for me. I mean, obviously there will be tangents,
Of course.
but
Right.
I'm also not very good at sticking to an outline, so maybe it would be a good challenge.
I think maybe we can stick to a good outline if we actually try to pick some specific examples for a particular messaging type and then just discuss that messaging type.
I like that idea.
Cool. Great. Sounds like we
All right.
might have something of a plan. More than a concept of a plan, anyway.
More than the concept of a plan, indeed. All right, I'm gonna head out. Thank you,
All right.
Jerry.
You have a great night, Shannon. Bye.
Tell Amy it was great to meet her.
Will do.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye.